7 spine-chilling motel secrets exposed. Terrifying encounters you'll regret ignoring forever. Lisa gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as she pulled into the Sunset Inn. The yellow neon sign buzzed, casting an eerie glow over the cracked pavement. It looked nice enough from a distance, but up close, the peeling paint and broken shutters told a different story. This place had seen its share of shadows. Her heart raced. They needed an escape. A fresh start. And at least here, the rates were low. As she settled Mia and Jake into their cramped room, Lisa's instincts buzzed. The dim hallway stretched ahead, shrouded in a silence so thick it felt suffocating. "It'll be fine," she assured them, the words tasting bitter on her tongue. Shadows flickered with each gust from the rattling air conditioner, and those whispers of discontent lingered in her ears, like the echo of a warning siren. It started small. A fleeting laugh, a soft murmur, nothing that her exhausted mind couldn't muster. But as darkness took hold, discomfort took root. Lisa tucked her kids in, forcing a smile as Jake nestled into his blankets. Mia's little fingers clutched the hem of her shirt, and for a moment, fear slithered through Lisa's resolve, but she brushed it off. "Just tired. Just tired," she muttered under her breath, pacing the room, a mix of determination and impending dread swirling inside her. The night grew thick, stretching toward her like a suffocating fog. A bang echoed from the wall, sending a chill racing down her spine. She looked towards the kids, who slept soundly, oblivious to the brewing storm. Lisa could feel her pulse quicken when the whispers grew clearer. It was like they were calling her, drawing her closer. Curiosity urged her feet forward. The flickering lights seemed to lead her as she ventured into the hallway, heart hammering. The wallpaper peeled away like dead skin, and each step made the floor creak in protest. It led her to the office, deserted, a layer of dust cloaking the desk. Glancing around, she stumbled upon a collection of dusty, old photographs hidden beneath the counter. Faces smiled back at her, cheerful, frozen in time. They felt wrong. So many smiles. So many stories. There was something unsettling here, something lurking beneath the surface. Then she spotted a hidden door, half open, the rusty handle calling to her. Her heart raced. Whatever lay beyond beckoned her curiosity, pulled by dread. Slowly, she pushed it open, revealing a room that felt alive with a chilling energy. Inside was a shrine. Photos of past guests adorned the walls, their smiles warped and sinister, grinning at her absurdly. Prickles of anxiety danced along her skin as though they were reaching out. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." The door slammed shut behind her, plunging her into an oppressive silence. Panic surged, pounding in her ears, racing through her veins. She could feel eyes on her. It was suffocating. Lisa staggered back, slamming her palms against the door, heart thumping wildly. Was she really alone? The chilling air wrapped tighter around her, whispers curling like smoke around her ears. "Leave, stay, Tom? The motel owner?" That charming facade began to warp before her eyes, and under the surface he felt menacing, each grateful word she'd heard from locals suddenly reversed. What hidden secrets did they harbor, and how deep did this darkness run? As she turned the handle, it wouldn't budge. Panic boiled in her gut. Shadows crept in, clawing away at the edges of her reality. As she braced for whatever nightmare awaited her, the question loomed: would she unlock the truth before it consumed her whole? Frantically, Lisa tugged at the door handle, her breath quickening as desperation clawed at her throat. It remained stubbornly closed, a solid barrier between her and the unseen horrors lurking just beyond. She pressed her forehead against the cold steel, her heart drumming a frantic beat in her chest. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, wrapping around her like a noose. "Leave, stay," each word twisted in her mind, tormenting her with the weight of unseen choices. In that horrifying stillness, A scraping sound echoed from further down the hallway. It sliced through the thick silence, sharp enough to make her jump. Lisa took a shaky breath, forcing herself to focus, to calm the thumping of her heart. The reality of where she was started to sink in. Was this motel really just a cheap getaway, or was it something far more sinister? Gathering her resolve, she leaned closer to the door, listening. Her skin prickled as she strained to hear more than the disturbing lull of silence. There it was again, a faint creaking sound, like footsteps approaching. Then, a soft voice drifted through the air, muffled yet eerily melodic. "Come play with us." The words, cradled with an unsettling gentleness, sent chills racing down Lisa's spine. Moments passed like hours as her mind raced through scenarios, each darker than the last. A knot formed in her stomach as she pressed her palm against the wall, steadying herself. If she could just glimpse what was on the other side. Taking a deep breath, she turned, scanning the room. It felt wrong, oppressive. Something was alive in this place, lurking, watching, feeding off her fear. Mustering her courage, she stepped back to the hidden door, pulling it open wider as if stepping into a different realm. The room beyond was dimly lit, a grim shrine to memories long buried. The walls were covered in yellow news clippings that detailed disappearances, once loved faces now lost in shadows. It felt wrong, horrifically wrong. One particular headline screamed from the wall: "Family vanishes without a trace at Sunset Inn." Her heart sank, and bile rose in her throat. What she breathed out, the weight of reality pressing on her. Behind the awful articles were uncanny images resembling her own children, smiles too wide, eyes too knowing. The whispers returned with a vengeance, swirling chaotically, drowning her thoughts. "Join us. Join us." Each syllable slithered into her ears, relentless, intoxicating. Panicking, Lisa stumbled backward, crashing into something solid, a body. She whirled around to face a child. A girl, her hair matted, clothes dirty and torn, stared right through her. Lisa's breath hitched in her throat. The girl's expression was chillingly vacant, yet somehow filled with desperate expectation. "Mommy?" Mia's small voice echoed from down the hallway. "Luce, we gotta go!" Lisa shouted, heart racing once more, panic exploding her senses. She sprinted past the apparition, making a beeline for Mia's voice. Every step back to the room felt like running through molasses. Shadows hissed with every hurried movement, grasping and clawing at her, as if trying to pull her back. She reached the room, fear bubbling over as she flung the door open. "Get your things! Now!" Panic dripped from her tone, shimmering under the dim light. "Why, Mom?" Jake asked, eyes wide and confused. But just as she felt hope flicker at the thought of escape, something ancient and heavy pushed against the door from the other side. "No! Stay!" The voice from before hissed as the door quivered ominously under unearthly pressure. The fear that washed over Lisa was visceral. She had to come to terms with one terrifying realization. The motel wasn't just a place to rest. It was a predator, masked in cheap decor, and she was its prey. As the whispers escalated into a maddening roar, the door rattled violently. Lisa turned, dread pooling in her stomach. Was there a way out, or was this their final stop? A shadow wavered at the threshold, thick and pulsing, drifting slowly toward them. Was it trying to collect its prize, to feast on her family's innocent lives? And then, the lights flickered out, plunging them into darkness. What would she choose, to go deeper into this nightmare or to fight against the insatiable hunger of the Sunset Inn? Cold darkness enveloped Lisa and her children, swallowing the room in an unsettling quiet. Inky shadows pressed against them, flickering only as they adjusted to the dimness. Every breath felt like a suffocating weight, the only sound being the relentless rattling of the door and the sound of her own heart pounding in her ears. "Mom, what is happening?" Jake mumbled, his small voice trembling in the dark. "Shush," she urged, pressing a finger to her lips, straining to listen. The whispers were now a mind-numbing chorus, chanting in a rhythm that matched the frantic thumps of her heart. "Stay, join us." With every syllable, the darkness crept closer, morphing into shapes that twisted and slithered. She gripped the doorframe, the splintered wood digging into her palms. They were trapped. But trapped where? Nothing felt real, yet everything felt profoundly terrifying. Get away from the door! She hissed, pulling her children closer, flinging herself against the far wall. The air was thick with dread, heavy with a malice that seemed to seep from every corner, as if the very walls of the motel were alive. Why won't you stay? The voice quivered, the children's faces pale with fear. Because we're leaving, Lisa screamed back, determination flaring in her gut. This place wanted them, and she wouldn't give in. Not now. Not ever. Before Lisa could gather her thoughts, the light flickered back intermittently, casting long, grotesque shadows that danced across the walls, revealing the horrific aftermath of the past. It was as if the ghostly remnants of the family that once lived here, twisted in agony, began to seep into her reality. No, please, no. Jake whimpered, his voice small. Suddenly, the door burst open, slamming against the wall with spine-chilling force. Lisa instinctively threw her arms around Mia and Jake, hoping somehow to shield them from the eruption of blackness that poured through the doorway. It was thick, swirling like fog, and from it emerged dark figures, pale faces twisted in twisted smiles, eyes void and hungry. Join us, they chanted, their voices echoing in unison, looping as if rehearsing for an unholy performance. Lisa felt bile rise in her throat, disgust mixing with terror. The figures surged toward her. Time stretched painfully as she glanced at her children, searching for any hint of resistance in their trembling forms. She could see dread reflected in their eyes, and she felt a new wave of desperation wash over her. Run! She shouted, adrenaline kicking into full force as she released her grip on the wall, ready to spring into action. She caught hold of their hands, leading them toward the far wall where a narrow window stood, its jagged edges glinting ominously in the dim light. Mom, what if we get caught? Mia's voice was barely a whisper, but it pierced through like a blade. Caught? We'll take our chances! Lisa shouted, urging them forward. As Lisa frantically pushed her children toward the window, she heard a shriek filled with rage as the darkness swelled, a tangible force she could feel against her skin. Stay. Stay with us. The chilling chorus rose, louder and more sinister, as the haunting figures lurched closer, driven by a hunger that felt primal and insatiable. With a swift motion, Lisa shoved Mia through the window, her heart racing as she yanked Jake up behind her. But as they squeezed through, something cold gripped her ankle, pulling her back. Panic shot through her, cold and unyielding. She twisted, kicking at the shadow, but it tightened its hold. Don't leave us! It wailed, desperation carved into every syllable. No! I won't leave you! She roared, fighting against the gloom. Her children's terrified faces were etched into her mind. She could feel the shadows pulling her down, could feel the relentless grasp of the creature that craved her soul. With a sudden wrench, she tore free, breaking the grip that wanted to keep her tethered to the malevolent depths of the motel. Mom! Mia screamed from outside. But when she turned to the window, all she saw were eyes, millions of them, dark and fixated, full of the same insatiable hunger. It wasn't just the motel that was watching, they were now part of it too, and in that crushing moment, Lisa understood they never wanted her to leave. They wanted her to stay forever. What happened next would either seal her fate or set her free. As she buried the horror deep within her heart, a beam of moonlight broke through the fear, illuminating the torn window and the faces she longed to protect. There was only one choice left to make. Climb back! She shouted, her voice shaking with desperation, realizing that the fight wasn't merely for her life, but for theirs too. Would they break free from this nightmare, or would they all succumb to the sinister call of the sunset inn? Lisa felt the pull of shadows still clinging to her legs as she scrambled toward the window. The coldness was biting, wrapping around her like a vice, and she could hear the shrieks echoing in her mind, tugging at her sanity. Mom, please! Jake cried as he peered through the jagged opening, his small features framed by the silvery moonlight. His face was pale, drenched in sweat and worry, eyes wide as they searched for her. Grab my hand! She yelled, her own heart pounding hard enough to blur her thoughts. Mia's anguished expression flickered like a candle about to go out. We can't leave you! Do it! Now! Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Jake reached out. She lunged for him, their fingers connecting for a fleeting moment, as she felt the icy breath of the darkness growing hungrier behind her. The whispers rose to a deafening crescendo, the air thick with their malignancy. Just as she thought she'd make it through, an unseen force yanked viciously at her arm. She glanced down, and to her horror, saw fingers clawed and slimy emerging from the shadows on the floor. They were reaching for her, dragging her into the abyss, their malevolent desire whispering sweetly in her ear, murmuring promises of eternal peace, of never-ending slumber. Let go of me! She screamed, her words solidifying her resolve. The darkness was alive. It thrived on fear, augmenting its grip with every quiver of uncertainty. With her other hand she yanked Jake closer, but the shadows were relentless. Another hand shot out, slimy and slick, catching her wrist. Lisa fought, summoning every ounce of strength from the depths of her being. Her world narrowed down to pulling her children through the window. Mom! Mia cried, her voice breaking. Climb! Climb! Lisa gasped through clenched teeth, desperation clawing at the edges of her sanity. With one last surge, she propelled Jake forward, bolting her resolve one last time. You have to go! In that split second of release, the shadows surged towards her, drowning her in an inky tide. Ignoring the screams echoing in the air behind her, she twisted and kicked, an animal fighting for survival. It worked unexpectedly. She burst through the window with a rush of momentum, landing hard on the ground below. Mom! Jake caught her as she fell, their bodies colliding with a harsh thud. But when she turned back, her heart sank. The window gaped wide, framed by darkness, but there was no sign of Mia. Just a cool breeze that whispered her name, drawing her gaze toward the shadows that clung to the edges like hungry specters. Mia! Lisa screamed, panic clawing at her throat. Come back! Silence answered her, and with it, an icy grip of dread. The darkness swirled beyond the window, alive and writhing, replacing her daughter's face with those pale, twisted figures that were now fusing into one grotesque entity. Join us, it echoed, the voices now a sickening mixture of Mia's sweet tone twisted by darkness. No! I want tea! Lisa shouted, her sanity hanging by a thread. But the universe around her shifted, her heart pounding a desperate rhythm as the shadows throbbed, pulsating like a living entity. Adrenaline coursed through her, and she knew they couldn't leave. Not now. Not without her daughter. Mom? Came a faint voice, weak and trembling. Every hair on her body stood on end. Mia was still in there. Mia! Hold on! Lisa screamed, clenching Jake's hand tighter. The ground beneath her trembled, the very essence of the motel seeming to shake with glee. The walls pulsed and breathed, confining them in a nightmarish loop. Just then, Lisa noticed a flicker at the corner of her eye. The door, the source of their horror, stood ajar, bathed in a sickly green light. Could she brave that darkness again? Would it devour her once more? Holding Jake close, Lisa prepared herself. We're going back, she whispered, resolve flooding her chest. They would face the shadows again, plunge back into the maw of despair, the only path leading to her daughter. But which of them would they truly claim in the end? With hearts racing and breasts shallow, they stepped forward, uncertainty clawing at their heels. They would find Mia, no matter the cost. But the waves of whispering shadows behind them held an unsettling truth: they might just get what they desired. The door creaked open, revealing deep, unnatural darkness that seemed to pull at them like a hungry beast. Each step Lisa and Jake took felt like treading through molasses. The air grew heavier, pressing against their chests, wrapping around them with a cold, cloying touch. Mia! Lisa yelled again, her voice wavering as it echoed through the chilling void. The shadows twisted, morphing into shapes that danced and flickered at the edge of her vision. She felt frantic. Every second felt like it could be the last. Jake squeezed his mother's hand, his small fingers trembling. Mom, I don't want to go in there, fear etched his face, rendering his eyes even wider. We have to, she replied, forcing a sternness into her voice that was quickly swallowed by the rising dread. In her heart, she prayed that Mia was still alive, that she had somehow eluded the suffocating darkness. They stepped through the threshold, and the door slammed shut behind them, plunging them into piercing silence, amplifying the sound of their heartbeats. Nothing was visible except for the sickly green light emanating from deep within the room. It flickered like a faulty bulb, casting grotesque shadows that twisted into horrifying forms on the walls. "Stay close," Lisa hissed, her voice a thin whisper, her instincts screaming. They moved further inside, stepping lightly, as if the floor might betray them with a sudden crack. As they advanced, the sounds began creeping back, whispers, mournful cries, a symphony of despair wrapping around them, tightening its grip. "Mom, I can't," Jake stammered, his breath catching in his throat. "Just keep walking," she urged, but she too felt that familiar pull of despair. Each agonizing step dragged her further into the maw of whatever darkness awaited. Suddenly, a glimpse of movement caught her eye. There! A shadow darted across the room, disappearing into a corner. "Mia!" Lisa lurched forward, but Jake tugged at her shirt, panic radiating off him like heat from a flame. "No, wait! Don't!" But Lisa's heart hammered too loudly. She couldn't stop. She needed to find her daughter. She squeezed Jake's hand tightly, forging ahead with renewed desperation. As they neared the corner, a soft voice emerged from the growing cacophony. "Mom? Help!" A jolt of hope surged through Lisa. "Mia! I'm right here!" The shadows shifted violently, swirling and colliding, reaching out to snatch at her ankles. "No! Stay away!" she shouted, flinging her arms protectively around Jake. "Mia!" Then came the ghastly laughter, twisting its way around her, horrific, mocking, full of malice. "She doesn't belong to you," it taunted, brushing against her ear like a lover's whisper. "Join us, she'll be ours forever." "Get back!" Lisa screamed, fury igniting her resolve. "You don't own her! You can't take my baby!" But the room seemed to pulse with sinister delight, the walls bending cozy like a trap. In the corner, her eyes adjusted, revealing a shape. It was her Mia! Clinging to the wall, her eyes glazed over, an unearthly glow pooling there. "Mia!" But as Lisa reached out, the light flickered and vanished. Mia dissipated into the shadows, her voice trailing off, "Mom." Jake's grip tightened on her hand. "Mom, it's going to get us." Bile rose in her throat. The shadows writhed like live wires, the whispers unrelenting, clawing at the remnants of her sanity. "I want to lose you." With a desperate leap, she surged toward the now empty corner, searching the frantic darkness. Her fingertips brushed against something cool and slick, a hand. She froze, dread pooling in her stomach. Suddenly, a fierce wind howled through the room, sending howling echoes ricocheting off the walls. Then came the silence. Lisa spun around, heart thudding painfully. "Jake?" But the small boy had vanished into the darkness, swallowed whole just like Mia. Panic seized her. "No! Jake!" The shadows laughed again, cruel and twisted, and Lisa felt her strength falter. What just happened? Had the darkness taken them both? "Join us," the darkness whispered, curling around her, wrapping around her like a suffocating cloak. Every instinct screamed for her to run, but her feet felt like lead. This time, she knew, terror was not just closing in, it was consuming her. Would she have the strength to resist? And what would she find in the void that lay ahead? The silence hung heavy, suffocating Lisa as she stood alone in the oppressive darkness. The whispers swelled again, rising around her like a tide. Each murmur felt personal, gnawing at her mind. "Join us," they hissed, filled with malice, their syllables twisting in her ears. "Together forever." She stifled a cry, forcing her legs to move even as the shadows clawed at her, trying to pull her into their inky abyss. She took a shaky step forward, then another. The sickly light flickered again, revealing fleeting glimpses of grotesque faces like mounds of lost souls screaming silently, their eyes hollow. "Jake! Mia!" Each name was a plea, vibrating with a mix of determination and fear. Lisa stumbled deeper into the darkness, her breaths coming in sharp gasps. The room loomed larger yet, almost breathing, as if the walls themselves were alive. A whimper echoed in the distance, a sound so raw it pierced through the eldritch whispers. Mom, it was Jake. She could feel his little voice reaching out to her through the black. Her heart raced. I'm coming! Where are you? The walls shifted around her, the green light dancing like flames. The shadows contorted, revealing a hallway snaking deeper into the void. Without thinking, Lisa ran, following the sound of her son's voice. As she sprinted down the corridor, the whispers ramped up. You shouldn't have come here, you should leave now, but leave? She couldn't. Not without Jake. The peerless void clawed deeper into her psyche, trying to convince her to turn back, to run for the safety that felt miles away. Mom! Help! The cry echoed louder now, an urgent plea that made her soul ache. She burst into an expansive room that seemed carved from the same evil darkness. The sickly green light pulsed ominously, illuminating jagged shadows of furniture that twisted grotesquely. A worn-out chair sat against the far wall, and as she peered closer, her heart dropped. Jake was there, sitting limp, eyes wide but vacant, every hint of vibrancy drained from him. No! Jake! Lisa rushed toward him, adrenaline spurring her on. But the moment she reached out, a wave of energy surged through the room. Stop! The shadows hissed, swirling violently. They lashed out at her, wrapping around her limbs like chains, pulling her back, toying with her. Leave him alone! She yelled, fighting against the suffocating grip of the darkness. But with every ounce of strength she had, the shadows tightened, their icy grasp holding her hostage. Jake's eyes flickered, momentarily regaining focus. Mom, please, fear coursed through her veins. What had they done to him? The shadows began to weave more tightly around him, as if taking root. Dark tendrils seemed to sap away everything that made him her boy. In that instant, Lisa heard an echoing laughter, a chorus of grotesque chuckles that echoed and flared like 1,000 wicked souls taking joy in her despair. He's ours now, he will join us, no! No! She fought against the darkness, grit overcoming her fear. You can't take him! With a feral scream, Lisa redoubled her efforts, clawing at the shadows, willing the darkness to release her child. Just as the shadows threatened to swallow her entirely, she spotted a glimmer, something bright nestled within the depths of Jake's small hands. Jake! Hold on to it! She shouted, fear electrifying her voice. Whatever it is, don't let it go! Light pulsed in his grip, fighting against the darkness that threatened to engulf them. Could it be? Was it hope? But in the next breath, the shadows surged and laughed harder, tightening their hold, determined to snuff out the light. It became a twisted game of tug-of-war between them. Lisa's heart raced, blending terror and determination, pushing against the encroaching void. Mia! Jake! It came out as a howl now, desperation woven through each syllable. But would her cries reach them? As the darkness howled back, the room began to tremble, and she felt both strength and despair warring within her. The culmination of their struggle was coming to a head. Would she be able to save them? Or was the void too powerful? The shadows seemed to lean closer, seeking her surrender, their whispers promising peace if she would just surrender to them. In that desperate moment, her resolve hardened. If she was going down, she would go down fighting. But just then, a piercing scream erupted from the shadows. It shattered the suffocating calm, and for a moment, Lisa glanced over, confusion mixing with fear. What was happening? And then she understood the fight was about to take a sinister twist. The scream reverberated, a forceful shockwave that broke the hold the shadows had on her, if only for a moment. Lisa's heart raced, adrenaline crashing through her. The darkness shifted like a tide, momentarily swirling away from her. Jake! She gasped, eyes darting around. He wasn't moving, the light in his grip waning. Then, from the shadows emerged figures, elongated limbs and ghastly smiles, humanoid shapes contorted into terrorizing mockeries of her family. The whispers lay thick between them, filling the air with promises coded in threats. Join us, dear Lisa, join your son. Fear seized her. Every instinct screamed to flee, but there was no escape. They were circling, shadows entwining in an insidious dance, spiraling closer. You think light can save you? One figure purred, its voice sultry yet drooping with malice. You think it can save your boy? No! She yelled back, clenching her fists, determination sparking like embers in her chest. I will not let you take him. Not now, not ever! With a desperate lunge, she surged forward, ignoring the hands that groped at her, the cold fingers grazing her skin. She reached for Jake, whose vacant eyes seemed to dim under the weight of the encroaching darkness. Focus on me, Jake! She shouted, her throat raw. Please look at me. Remember our game? Remember your favorite song? It was a long shot, but she had to try. His lips trembled, sunlight peeking through the murky darkness. Mom, his voice cracked, and he blinked rapidly, fighting against the dark vines squirming around him. The figures hissed, their laughter a cacophony that twisted her insides. You cannot bring him back. He is ours. A wave of anger surged through Lisa. She felt the shadows thickening again, trying to confuse her, but she refused to back down. No! You may have taken him for a moment, but he is my son. With a sudden, shocking clarity, she closed her eyes. No more thinking. Just feeling. The warmth of Jake's heart pulsed against her, vibrating her core. Jake, listen. Grab onto me. We'll defeat them together. Mom, he whimpered, eyes wide again, flickering with life, the light in his grip reigniting. There's my boy. Hold tight. He clutched the glow desperately, and its brightness intensified, radiating energy that cut through the shadows like a beacon in a storm. The darkness recoiled as if burned, the figures screeching now in agony. Stop this! You cannot escape the darkness! They shrieked, but their cries were laced with fear now. Lisa could feel it, they were weakening. Now, Jake! Together! She launched herself toward him, focusing every ounce of willpower into their connection. The moment they touched, a blinding flash ignited the room, the shadows howling as they were pushed back, banished by the force of their united light. But then, everything went black again. In the aftermath of their brilliance, the room sank into a suffocating silence. Mom? Jake's voice was small, uncertain, fading into the dark. Jake! Panic gripped her. The light had dimmed. Where was he? Before the darkness could take hold once more, she stumbled about, arms extended. Desperation welled as she searched. Relinquish her, she belongs to the night. The shadows rasped, voices blending into a demonic choir of mockery. Let him go! She screamed again, anger igniting her voice, realizing her body still thrummed with energy. You want me? Take me, but let him free! There was an unbearable stillness, the shadows whispering amongst themselves as they weighed her words. Shadows writhed at her feet, pulling, threatening, and then, in that perfect moment of dread, a chilling laugh slithered through the darkness. What if we take both? The bargain is sweet. You're all part of our game now. The air thickened around her as images flooded back. Mia, shrieks echoing. She felt herself teetering on the brink of despair, caught in a web of shadows poised to ensnare her family completely. Could she outsmart them? Suddenly, the room split open with an ear-splitting crack, revealing a deeper, darker corridor that pulsed with a heartbeat. The wall behind her melted. Shadows licking closer, enveloping her in suffocating despair. She had only one choice. One final gamble. With a racing heart, she bolted toward the darkness, whispering, Jake, Mia, I'm coming. But the moment she entered, the chill of uncertainty gripped her tighter. Would she emerge with them, or forever lose her way? Somewhere in that abyss, a new flutter of laughter danced through the thick air, an echoing challenge that made her spine tingle. The shadows were taunting her. Had she truly underestimated them? The corridor swallowed her whole, the darkness swallowing her screams as her feet pounded against the cold, damp floor. Each step felt like it was dragging her deeper into a void that pulsed with life, and a live nightmare that breathed uncertainty into her lungs. Terror clawed at her, each whisper of the shadows tightening around her throat. Ahead, the corridor twisted and turned, elongating into a distance she could not fathom. She could sense them, the figures lurking just beyond her vision, watching, waiting. She remembered the chilling promise of losing everything. No! She thought. This has to end! As the shadows writhed, she saw flickering visions, the faces of her children morphing into grotesque parodies of joy, distorted by their fear. Mia's laughter echoed, sounding like nails scraping down a chalkboard. "Mommy, are you coming to play?" Lisa stumbled, bow rising in her throat as her heart raced. "Mia!" she cried out, each syllable laced with desperation. Silence answered her, thick and suffocating. She fought back the surge of despair trying to drown her. Then, a soft glow emerged as she pressed on, a glimmer of hope calling her name. It flickered like a candle, illuminating parts of the corridor. In that light, the shadows recoiled, but it was fleeting. Whenever she approached, it dimmed, dancing just out of reach. She had to make a choice: follow the light, or confront the encroaching darkness that threatened to pull her back into its grip. "Jake, Mia!" she whispered, forcing the names from her lips, pushing her feet forward despite the cold dampness wrapping around her ankles like a predator-esque grasp. From the depths of the shadowy abyss, laughter echoed. "You are getting closer, dear Lisa, closer to your demise." Each word cut through her like shards of glass. She felt their eyes bore into her, a coldness that sank deep, chilling her soul. But she shoved that fear aside, clutching the energy pulsing within her. Whatever shadowy grip they had on her children, she would sever it. Instincts kicked in as she turned a corner, and her senses sharpened. The air grew thick, drawing her deeper into its tangled web. There, at the end of the corridor, the glow brightened, beckoning her with a siren call. It was the source of warmth, the sanctuary she believed could save them all. "Mommy, help us!" A little voice reached her, barely a whisper, so weak it made her heart ache. Panic pricked at her. Was that really Jake? Before she could reach for him, a sudden shift in the air knocked her back. Tendrils of shadow lashed out, binding her with icy grips, dragging her down. The corridor filled with shrieks of laughter that warped into a symphony of torment. "You cannot escape, Lisa. You cannot save them. Let them go!" She screamed as she fought against the constricting darkness closing in, each breath coming quicker, shallower. With all her strength, she pulled the energy from within her like a desperate flame. It surged, flaring against the darkness that threatened to snuff it out. In a sudden, maddening push, she propelled herself forward, breaking free from their hold. The flickering light blinked insistently as she sprinted, gasping, choking back fear and despair. She felt the shadows clawing at her, shrieking in rage as she closed the gap between her and the fading glow. Then, the light exploded, illuminating the corridor in a blinding flash. Shadows shrieked in agony, but the figures were quick, darting back from the illumination, retreating like ink spreading in water. Yet, in the brilliance, she saw them, Jake and Mia, trapped within the mosaic of darkness, their faces pale, pleading. Fear twisted in her gut as she pushed forward, reaching desperately for them. She stretched her hands, ready to pull them into the refuge of light. "Mommy!" They screamed together, but just as their fingers brushed hers, the darkness surged back, a tidal wave slamming against her, and she felt herself being pulled apart. The light dimmed, shadows closing in once more, swallowing her cry. "Foolish girl," a voice hissed from the shadows. "You think you can master the night? You will learn, there's a price to pay." Lisa's heart raced wildly as everything went pitch black. Cold fingers encircled her throat, and a terrible realization struck her. She was alone. Was she sinking deeper into the void? There, in the smothering silence, she heard it, the echoes of her children's laughter, twisted and mocking, reverberating back at her. The shadows' laughter mingled with theirs, a cruel reminder of what she had lost. Despair washed over her. What if this was all a trap? She thought. What if I'd become just another shadow? In the disorienting dark, a faint shape began to materialize before her, familiar yet twisted, calling her name with an unsettling familiarity. "Join us, dear Lisa, the game has only just begun." Just on the cusp of understanding, A new terror gripped her heart. What fate awaited her in the shadows? Would she truly stand against them or become one of them? The suffocating darkness tightened around her like a vice, pulsing with a malevolent energy that seeped into her bones. Lisa's breath hitched as the familiar form before her twisted, becoming an amalgamation of memories intertwined with dread. Strands of hair hung limply, framing a face that wore an expression she recognized too well, a haunting smile that was both beloved and eerie, a mockery of her past joy. "Come to play, Mommy?" It croaked, voice distorted, echoing like a cruel chant in the stillness. The laughter that followed sent shivers racing down her spine, tightening her throat as icy fingers of despair clutched her heart. She wanted to scream, but the shadows wrapped around her, sucking the air from her lungs. "Let me go!" She remembered their faces, their beautiful expressions morphed into masks of fear. Desperation fueled her, igniting a flame deep within. She gathered the memories, their laughter, their hugs, the way they lit up her life, and wielded them like a sword against the enveloping darkness. "Get away from them!" she roared, anger mingling with an underlying panic as she pressed on, her footsteps a defiant drumbeat in the oppressive silence. The figure trembled, contorting from its ghastly facade to dissolve into swirling shadows. "They are ours," it hissed, tendrils of darkness lunging toward Lisa, seeking to bind her to the futility of despair. With fury coursing through her veins, she tore through the cloying shadow, vision blurred, the walls of the corridor closing in like a breathing beast. Then, a glimmer pulled at her heart, the candlelight. She charged toward the flickering beacon, and as she moved, the shadows recoiled, their whispers turning to howls of rage. "You cannot take them away! They belong here, with us!" It was a chorus of taunts, the voices layering into a terrifying symphony that prickled at her resolve. "Mommy," a broken voice drifted through, the timbre so familiar yet ghostly. "Jake, Mia!" Her heart raced. They were close, so close. She fought against the suffocating grasp of the darkness with every shred of determination she could muster. The light pulsed, beckoning her forward, clarity cutting through the shroud of terror. With each stride, she regretted every moment spent in fear, every second lost to the shadows. She had cradled her children in bed, sang lullabies, and tucked them in safely. This time, those memories ignited her. The brightness she had once taken for granted now became her weapon. "Hold on!" she cried, every ounce of frenzy infused within those two simple words. Just as she neared the light, a writhing mass of darkness lunged at her, snapping and snarling, eager to reclaim its hold. Fangs glinted, shadows bubbling like boiling oil, their scent of decay clawing at her nostrils. Lisa felt panic clawing at her throat, but she steeled herself. "Not today!" She raised her hands, fueled by love, and unleashed all her grief, all her hope. "Get away from them!" The words cut through, reverberating through the ether like a battle cry. For a moment, an otherworldly silence enveloped her, the shadows hesitating, unsure. Then an eruption of roiling blackness surged forward, a desperate retaliation. "Join us, Lisa!" A cacophony of voices enveloped her, sounding as though they were right in her ears, sweet, comforting, enticing. Yet she pushed through, clawing her way toward the brightness, beckoning her like a mother welcoming her home. As she felt the warmth wrapping around her, panic twisted inside her. What if she failed? What if they got lost forever? The light pulsed like a heartbeat, but shadows latched onto her ankles, desperately pulling her back into the endless night. With a final cry, she lunged forward, feeling the grip of the darkness tear at her cold, unforgiving, and then, a pull, a tug of reality. Or was it the shadows trapping her? They were blurs of white and black, her heart bounds like a drum, pulling her this way and that. She felt the warmth slipping away, then darkness fell again, heavy and welcoming, and the light flickered once more, but this time it was not just a flicker. It was fading away. "Mommy!" a voice echoed, this one stronger, full of desperation and clarity. In that moment, adrenaline rushed through her, the world spinning as she held on to the last threads of her strength. But as the barrage of darkness engulfed her, creeping into her mind, an unsettling thought curled around her heart. What if she was not the savior, but the one who needed to be saved? As she slipped into the void, the laughter returned, this time louder, vibrating with sinister glee as the corridor twisted and turned once more. "I'll find you," she vowed, desperation etched into her very soul. But was it a promise or a curse? What if the game had just begun for her too? The shadows pulsed, hungry for her next move, eager for the next round of play. What were the rules? And could she ever escape them? The silence stretched around Lisa, heavy with suffocating darkness. It felt endless, but amidst the shadows, she clung to a flicker of courage, fighting against the consuming dread. "I'll find you, my babies. No matter what it takes." Taking a deep breath, she steeled herself against the resonating whispers that clawed at her sanity. The air thick with malice buzzed against her skin, but she pushed forward, feeling the very ground alive beneath her feet. "Mommy, help us!" Jake's voice echoed through the blackness, sharp and desperate. Each word sliced through the drear, illuminating the depths of her soul with a powerful urgency. She had to get to him. To Mia there would be no turning back. With renewed determination, she charged deeper into the darkness, channeling every ounce of desperation into her feat. Memories of laughter and love surged through her mind as she barreled forward. Each step resonated with hope, the echoes of her children's giggles pushing her through the haze of despair. She could feel their presence, a shimmering light in the depths of the void there, but just out of reach. The shadows twisted violently around her, hissing and jeering. "You can't escape, they are ours now," they taunted, but Lisa felt the flicker within her brighten. "No!" she cried, her voice an ironclad barrier pushing back against the encroaching dark. "You are nothing!" Suddenly, a rush of energy flowed through her, the brilliance igniting within her heart, connecting her to the warmth she felt when holding her children close. The shadows shrieked in fury, writhing in retreat, but their grasp remained tight. She needed to reach the light, the radiant hope hidden amid the black. The twisted corridor began to vibrate, and Lisa felt her senses sharpen. Brightness swelled and folded around her, opening up vision after vision of her family. Moments of joy, love, laughter. They were part of her, nothing could sever that bond. "Mia! Jake!" she cried, her voice breaking through the din of darkness, and she felt the tingle of hope wrap around her, guiding her. "I'm coming! I won't leave you!" Then, out of the darkness, she heard a flicker of laughter so familiar it made her heart ache. Mia's voice, woven with laughter, echoed and twinkled like stars against the night sky. "Mommy!" It brought air back into her lungs. She sprinted toward it, every heartbeat an urge to reclaim her children. Just before the corridor twisted and swallowed her once more, a blinding flash erupted, shadows recoiling and cries morphing into anguished howls. The energy pulsed, as if the walls themselves recognized her resolve. But as shadows ebbed and swelled, she felt the ground quake beneath her feet, an ancient power bursting forth. Lisa reached a vast chamber, at last, an expanse of flickering shadows and deep throbbing light. There, standing at the edge, were Mia and Jake, shrouded in darkness yet illuminated by a subtle glow in their palms. "Mom!" They stretched their hands toward her, their faces a look of surprise and wonder, but the shadows surged, clawing towards them, desperate to reclaim their prize. "Hold on," Lisa urged, dread pooling in her stomach. With every ounce of strength she could muster, she lunged forward. The air around her shimmered with energy, amplifying her movements, igniting a path to her children. "We're leaving this place. Together." Mia and Jake clutched tightly to their light, hands gripping each other as the shadows writhed, growing chaotic. "Mom, we can't let them take us!" Jake shouted, fear written all over his face. "Then let us shine!" she cried, wrapping her arms around them tightly. With their lights enveloping them, the shadows recoiled and screamed. The chamber exploded with brightness as they combined their strengths, pushing forward into the heart of the abyss. The walls began to rumble, shadows twisting in disarray. "Join us! Join us!" The voices shrieked, desperation spewing from creatures now in retreat. "No more! This ends now!" Lisa bellowed, and they surged forward, breaking through the veil that wrapped around them. The shadows shrieked, echoing their anger and despair as they felt the warmth of love and light seeping into their cursed realm. With one final push, they burst free into a light that felt like dawn breaking after a relentless storm. The darkness faded away, almost like a bad dream under the first rays of morning sun, leaving only the warm glow of laughter ringing in the air. They stumbled onto the sidewalk of the Sunset Inn, breathing in the fresh air. Lisa fell to her knees, holding Mia and Jake tightly, their hearts pounding together in a shared rhythm. "We did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face, soaking the ground. "We're free." The hotel stood behind them, quieter now, as if something ancient had finally come to rest. The once dominating shadows lay dormant, nothing more than a distant memory wrapped in the cool breeze. Lisa looked into her children's eyes, so bright and full of life. "Promise we'll never go back there," she murmured, her heart swelling with relief and love. "Promise," they echoed, their hands slipping into hers as they turned to walk away. The weight of what they had faced would linger, but they had faced the abyss as a family, and now they stepped forward into the light together. As they walked into that glimmering horizon, laughter bubbled up between them, joy spilling into the open air. Shadows could never touch them again. And in that moment, Lisa knew they would heal. Together, they would let the light chase away the echoes of fear. So, if you've made it with us to the end of this chilling journey, I need you to take action right now. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories that could give you butterflies or make you scream. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm with love. I want to hear your reactions. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, your theories, and how you felt about this hair-raising conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. True fans, this is your moment to show your support. Let us keep this community growing.